Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Behavioral Sciences board meeting. My name is Max Disposti, pronounced him is. I'm the chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. Today is November 5th, 2020, and the time is 8:31 for the record. This meeting is occurring at various locations pursuant to Executive Order N-25-20, dated March 12, 2020. Today's meeting will be conducted using the following guidelines. All participants will mute their microphone or phone during each presentation of the agenda topic. At the end of the speaker's presentations, the board chair will ask for discussion from each board member in alphabetical order. Board members will unmute their microphone or phone to comment. Upon conclusions of your comments, please mute your microphone. Board members who wish to provide additional comments should select the raise hand feature next to their name. This will alert the host and chair you have additional comments. At the conclusion of the discussion for the board members, the chair will ask for public comments. Members of the public on the Zoom platform should select the raise hand feature next to their name to indicate that they have a comment. This will alert the host and chair so that you can speak. Please wait until you're recognized by the chair or the host to unmute your microphone or phone. Members of the public who are accessing the meetings through a phone will be asked for their comments following the comments by those attending via the Zoom platform. At the conclusion of the discussion period, the board chair will call for the vote, if necessary, or move to the next agenda item when needed. All in attendance should keep their comments specific to the agenda item being discussed. An opportunity for public comments for items not on the agenda will be provided. Please be advised that during this comment period, the board cannot engage in discussions or take actions on any matters that is raised, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. We will now establish the quorum. Christina, will you call the roll, please?
Just a moment, I'm letting her back in.
Okay. Thank you, Kim. Let me know when.
Hi, Kim, you're on mute. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties.
Okay.
And do we have a roll yet? Do I need to start that?
Actually, yeah, I was just calling the roll and you're coming right on time. Thank you, Christina.
Great.
Please go ahead.
So sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay, good morning, Max Disposti.
Good morning to you, Christina.
Christina Wong. Oh.
Here. Here.
Christina Wong? Okay, thank you.
Here.
Deborah Brown is absent. Ross Earlett.
Here, present.
Susan Friedman.
Here.
Dr. Diana Herwick.
Here.
Jonathan Maddox.
Here.
Kelly Manasinga.
Good morning, here.
John Sovek.
Here, and good morning, all.
Wendy Strack. Wendy, are you in today?
She's absent.
Okay, she's absent. Also absent today for the record is Crystal Anthony and Christopher Jones. And did I get all the other members? Great, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone. So we are now moving into our public comment session of this board session. Again, just a little reminder about the fact that that we will not be able to discuss or take actions on any matters that are raised during these public comment sections, except, of course, to decide to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting. Steve, since you're monitoring the presence, do you see anyone that would like to speak? And everyone will be, just for a reminder, will be given 2 minutes. We will be monitoring the time.
Okay. let me look, and it doesn't appear, and Lisa, you can help me out with this. There doesn't appear to be any hands raised. We do have a phone number, 916-607-73573. Do you have a comment? I think, let me look once more. I think we are fine. No comments.
That sounds good. Thank you, Steve. Thanks a lot. And we're moving to the next item on the agenda, which has to do with, to my board members, if there are any suggestions, items for the future agenda. Anyone? Okay.
Once again, I don't see anything. No.
Thank you again, Steve. I appreciate that. So we're now moving to our petition.
I had one issue I wanted to raise.
Okay, who's speaking? I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's Ross Ehrlich.
Okay, go ahead.
I was contacted from a friend of mine who's a therapist, and she wanted to know if the board had any, which I know that we don't have any official guidance regarding the use of masks or wearing masks when therapists are working with clients person to person. I know that there's no official guidance. I don't know if there's any way that the board might be able to post something on the website or something relating to directing people to the whatever local, maybe the state health or public health organizations or just something like that, so that maybe it can clarify for practitioners what the correct protocol is. So I'm not sure what we can do. I just wanted to bring it up and get some information.
Thank you, Ross. Just as a reminder, everyone works under the directive of their county where they're in. As we speak, we know in California, masks are mandated everywhere in any interactions with the public, especially in a health settings. I don't see any exclusions, but I understand where you're coming from with making sure that's clear. And also every agency should have their own protocol posted so that people are aware of their own, for their own safety and the safety of others. So just for clarification, but I think if more is needed, I always welcome additional education than less. So thank you. And anyone else from the board? Okay, then I think we can move to our petitioners, the session of the board where we are going to discuss our petitions. And I will move to our honorable judge today. Judge, welcome. The floor is yours, Judge Van Ruin. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me, Mr. Desposti?
Wonderful. Yes, I can.
I just wanted to, before we actually start, just make sure we've made, right now on the agenda, there's a certain order that the petitions appear in, but there have been some requests to modify the order, which I granted and the board president granted. And just so the public is aware, we will actually be hearing first the petition for early termination of probation by Laura Tomlinson, then followed by the petition for early termination of probation by Ashley Gwen Devine, and then we will proceed as on the agenda. So it will be Ms. Chapman next, followed by Ms. Hayes, and then finally Mr. Lewis. So that's the order we'll be going in. And then, Mr. President, will we be resuming the usual practice of about a 10-minute break between each petition? What is your preference? I defer to you on that.
Yes, I think that will be the best way. And then we are going to take an hour break after we hear all the petitioners before we go into closed session. So I think the 10 minutes between petitions will be the best way to go for. Thank you.
Perfect. And then I would just also say that if there's any board member at any point during our hearing or testimony that needs a break outside of the 10 minutes, please just let staff know. I will try and keep an eye myself on the monitor, but we're all juggling a lot. So just make sure you make it known, and then either yourself or the board president can just bring it to my attention and we can take a break if needed. And that way we make sure that all the board members present hear all the testimony during the hearings. All right. Ms. Litz, our court reporter, are you ready for our first petitioner?
Yes, I am, Your Honor. I don't know if you can see me, but I'll give you a thumbs up.
I can hear you and see you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to mute myself. I have animals, so I will. I'll be on mute.
No problem. I just want to make sure we don't get started without you being ready. And then, Ms. Tomlinson, are you on the line with us? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, Your Honor, I am, and I'm here.
And you have an attorney as well?
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, is that Ms. Johnson?
It is. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Okay, great. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. As I mentioned, we are here to review several petitions. We will take it slightly out of order on the agenda. The first petition we're hearing today is the petition for early termination of probation filed by Laura J. Tomlinson. This is LCSW 28337 and OAH case number 2020100354. My name is Wim Van Rooyen. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter today. Today is November 5th, 2020 at 8:30 a.m. We are conducting this matter via Zoom video conference due to the COVID-19 public health crisis and the governor's executive order N-25-20 dated March 12, 2020. And I will also let the record reflect that we have previously in the meeting taken a roll call of the board members, and we do have a quorum of the board present to hear the petition today. And so I do find that that quorum is present. May I please have an appearance by the Deputy Attorney General, please?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General.
Good morning to you, Ms. Crawford.
Good morning.
On behalf of the petitioner.
Good morning, Your Honor. Lindsay Johnson on behalf of petitioner Laura Julie Tomlinson.
And good morning to you, Ms. Johnson, and good morning to you, Ms. Tomlinson. Thank you so much for being here. And are represented by counsel. I will make the introduction brief, but nonetheless, just want to make sure everyone's on the same page in terms of the procedures today. So first, we will have the Deputy Attorney General introduce the petition packet and provide us with an orientation to the case. And then after that, the petitioner will have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why the petition should be granted. And counsel, you're welcome to make an opening statement and then present the testimony of your client. I leave that largely to you. And then obviously any if the petitioner testifies or any other witnesses do, they would be subject to questioning by the Deputy Attorney General and the board members. And I'll just emphasize that the board here is today primarily concerned with rehabilitation since the discipline was imposed. So while we do briefly revisit the procedural history, we're not relitigating the underlying case. We're mainly focused on what happened since probation was imposed and rehabilitative efforts since then. The petitioner does not have to repeat anything that's included in the package and can assume that the board members have thoroughly reviewed the contents. After the hearing today, the board will go into a closed session to deliberate, and the petitioner will not receive a decision today, but will receive it in the mail at some point in the future. Any questions from petitioner's counsel?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Crawford.
I'm sorry. Hello, my hand has been raised for a while. I hate to interrupt. This is Charlemagne Hayes. It says the host has disabled my video.
Oh, okay. Let's go off the record really quick. We don't need this on the record. Do we want to resolve the technical issue, Ms. Hayes?
The video has been turned off unless they're participating, thereby only leaving the petitioner and any witnesses and the board members, the judge and the court reporter and the attorneys visible. So Ms. Hayes, we'll turn your video back on when your matter comes before the board.
Okay, so just remain muted and invisible as well.
Yes,
okay,
it helps.
thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for clearing that up, Ms. Mattson. I appreciate it. All right, Ms. Litz, we can go back on the record. All right, we're back on the record. We were just dealing with a small technical issue. Ms. Crawford, any questions before you get going?
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right, then I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Crawford, to just introduce the providers with the background of the case and introduce the petition packet materials.
Thank you. My name is Anahita Crawford. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, and I'm here just to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial. As way of a background of this case, the petitioner was issued her licensed clinical social worker license on March 22nd, 2012. An accusation was filed on July 6, 2016, and the accusation alleged that the petitioner was convicted of a misdemeanor DUI on August 18, 2015, and was driving with a blood alcohol level of 0.18 after leaving a friend's party at 1 a.m. On January 11, 2018, a decision after rejection became effective, placing the petitioner on 5 years of probation. Her terms of probation included undergoing a psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, engaging in a dependency support program and remedial education, and submitting to fluid testing and payment of board costs. She is fully compliant in all areas. Petitioner is requesting early termination, and she has 2 years and 3 months remaining on her probation term. Your Honor, when you're ready, I can introduce the packet.
Yes, I am ready for you. Thank you.
Okay. Our first exhibit is the board memo to the board members regarding the probation status of petitioner. I would like that marked as Exhibit 1 and admitted at this time.
Any objection, Ms. Johnson, to Exhibit 1?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Thank you. Exhibit 2 is a notification of hearing to the petitioner of today's hearing date. I'd like that marked as Exhibit 2 and admitted.
Any objection to Exhibit 2?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is a certification of registration history. I'd like that marked and introduced at this time.
Any objection to Exhibit 3?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is the petition for early termination of probation and the attachments in support that was filed by the petitioner. I'd like that marked and introduced at this time as well.
Any objection to Exhibit 4?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
And the final exhibit, Exhibit 5, is the decision after rejection and disciplinary order, as well as the underlying, the underlying accusation. I would like that marked and introduced at this time as well.
Any objection to Exhibit 5?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 5 is admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no additional information to present to the board.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. All right, Ms. Johnson, I will turn it over to you then to present petitioner's case. As I mentioned earlier on, you're more than welcome to make an opening statement and then proceed to present your client's testimony and or any other witnesses. And then obviously I'll allow cross-examination as necessary by Ms. Crawford and the board members if they have any questions. All right, you may proceed.
Perfect, thank you. I will be rather brief in opening, just because I imagine the board is most interested in hearing from Ms. Tomlinson, and certainly I recognize the agenda. As was just noted, Ms. Tomlinson was first licensed by the board in 2012. For 8.5 years, she has established a thriving and professional reputation. Spending the vast majority of her career working at the VA's office, she has been recognized on the local, state, and national level for her successes. As was also just mentioned, Ms. Tomlinson has one conviction in her history. In 2014, she was arrested for driving under the influence, a matter that she fully addressed, not only taking responsibility in criminal court, but then receiving early termination of her probation in criminal court and seeking every opportunity to demonstrate that this was, by all accounts, an anomaly in her life. This conviction is Ms. Tomlinson's only conviction, and she immediately started taking steps to remediate it. She sought therapy on her own prior to any board action, and she started attending regular sessions to make sure that she'd addressed any underlying issues. This was then followed up with an evaluation from an addictionologist who also confirmed the fact that this was, by all accounts, an anomaly. For almost 3 years now, Ms. Tomlinson has been on board probation, and as noted, she has been fully compliant with that probation. However, she's gone above and beyond that, not only doing just the steps asked by the board, but her own independent actions, seeking additional retreat sessions and seeking additional insight into the behaviors that might have played a contributing factor in 2014. As a result, she has gone above and beyond in demonstrating that there are no lingering concerns. Her board-appointed psychiatrist has reached out to the board in the past to ask that her sessions be reduced, and he once again joins in asking for early termination and probation here. By all accounts, Ms. Tomlinson's, her supervisors, her friends, her family, her colleagues, her psychiatrist, her support group, and everyone who knows her, Ms. Tomlinson recognizes and represents no danger to the public, and she should be allowed, she believes, and based on the belief of others, to practice without the additional oversight by the board. She has faced 2 new challenges in bringing this action, and the first is that, as stated, everyone in her life believes that there is no need for additional oversight. But also, as her life has faced new challenges moving forward, it has become even more important to her that she is allowed to dedicate her focus and her daily activities to not only staying healthy, but also to managing new health crisis, which is part of the reason why she is also asking for early termination in this matter. But as noted at the beginning, I imagine the board is most interested in hearing from Ms. Tomlinson. So with the board's permission, and then certainly your honor's permission, we would like to call her as our witness in this matter.
All right, thank you so much. Ms. Tomlinson, I can see you. You can still hear me well, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm just going to swear you in. If you could raise your right hand wherever you are. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you so much. And then if any question you get asked by anyone today, if it's unclear or ambiguous, you don't understand, just let us know and we can have it rephrased or clarified. If you do provide an answer, we'll assume that you understood the question. Fair enough?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Johnson, your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. Ms. Tomlinson, how old are you?
I'm 51.
And are you currently employed?
I am.
Where do you currently work?
I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs.
And do you have a job title at the Department of Veterans Affairs?
I'm a senior social worker, Veterans Justice Outreach Specialist.
And would you mind briefly describing for us your job duties under that title?
As a Veterans Justice Outreach Specialist, I work in the community within a collaborative treatment court. Veterans Treatment Court is based in Orange County, where I work, and it is a community collaborative to assist combat veterans who have criminal matters, and as such, I am the treatment coordinator. I do initial assessments for them and set up their initial treatment plan. I liaison with the court as they move through their program and adjust their treatment plan accordingly as they make progress. I liaison between the VA and the community collaborative court here in Santa Ana.
And how long have you been employed by the Veterans Affairs?
I started my employment the last year in my master's program as an intern in 2008, and I was hired on a full-time employee after graduation in 2009.
And during your time of employment, starting at your intern status, have you ever been subject to any discipline by your employer?
No, no discipline whatsoever.
Do you receive regular evaluations?
I do receive regular evaluations, both annual and semi-annual. All of my evaluations have always been fully successful, or in most recent years, actually, the highest rating I was awarded at outstanding.
Have you been nominated for any awards or accolades during your time there?
I have been. There are many, several of them were provided in at the initial hearing. And since that time, I've also received my 10-year annual service award. One of the most profound awards I received was a peer nomination from the social work department. And I was nominated within the department for my commitment to excellence and to serving the veterans.
Is your employer aware of your license status right now?
Yes, my employer is both the chief of my department and my immediate supervisor, many close colleagues also.
And did the change in your license status trigger sort of inquiry by your employer?
Yes, indeed it did. There is very strict protocols within the Department of Veterans Affairs, both locally and nationally, that require any licensed person to have no restrictions on their license. And as such, it triggered an investigation in my license upon my last renewal, when it was found that through an automated mechanism, there was the probationary terms. Even though I'd already fully disclosed that to my chief, to my supervisor, to colleagues, made that known in all levels of report. That came up in an automated system, and as a result of the investigation, I was put on leave without pay for 4 months. 4 weeks. I was on leave without pay while the investigation was going on as a safety measure, as the VA investigated that. It's due to my reputation for excellence, my work history, my performance evaluations, the strong advocacy of my social work chief, Kimberly Shear, my supervisor, Susan Adams, who were advocating for me that I was able to continue my employment despite some pretty significant regulations that may have indicated contrary.
Is it safe to say then, based on the investigation and the fact that you've spoke to your employers, that they are fully aware of what has happened and also fully supportive of you?
Absolutely, they are unwavering in their support for me to continue my employment, to continue to work in an unrestricted manner.
I'm sorry. Are they aware that you are applying for early termination of probation in this matter?
Yes, they are, and they have submitted letters in support of this.
And not only in addition to the letters, is it your opinion that they support your early termination due to no concerns?
Absolutely. These are conversations that I've had with both the chief and the supervisor, requesting their feedback, actively asking for any guidance that they have, any feedback that they have regarding my professional duties, my character, my integrity, my ethics. This is part of who I am today, is really actively seeking feedback and consultation from peers and supervisors, and there's been no concerns expressed whatsoever. In fact, they have been encouraging me to follow through with this petition.
Turning to the actual petition itself and the reason behind the petition, I imagine you heard His Honor speaking prior that we're not going to go into extensive detail in what happened in the past, but can you briefly describe for us what led to your arrest in 2014?
In December 2014, I was at a colleague's holiday party, and at that party there was an unusual drink being served, one that I was unaware of, and not something I normally engaged in. It was a peppermint martini, and the hostess continued to top off our glasses throughout the evening. I was talking to friends and continuing to drink, being unaware of how many drinks exactly I had had. After leaving the party that night, I was pulled over. I failed field sobriety test, and I was detained and arrested for a DUI. It was a horrifying night. Excuse me. And following that time, I made every effort to resolve it, do what I needed to do within the criminal courts, and completed the sentence and was released from informal probation early in May of 2017.
You mentioned that you did whatever you needed to do with criminal court. Did you take any additional steps, or have you since taken any additional steps to address the matter that were not mandated by criminal court?
Absolutely. I mean, I think you can tell by my response that it was truly a horrifying event. I was terrified, disappointed. And it shook me to my core, quite honestly. It shook me to my core. I engaged in, I sought out a private therapist, engaged in weekly meetings, sessions with them to take a look at what was going on in my life. Clearly, I needed some support and feedback, and I sought that out. I also immediately abstained from alcohol, and I started attending AA 12-step meetings. I let people in my life know what was going on, and I asked for support and feedback. I truly wanted to do beyond what was required in criminal court. Made every effort to leave no stone unturned. Yeah, it really shook me.
During your time with your therapist, so you said you started private therapy and were seeing her weekly, were you eventually released from therapy, or are you still continuing with her, or kind of what's the status there?
Yes, we made really great progress. Some of the work that I requested that we do is to focus on what had brought me in, work stressors, poor coping, evidently, obviously, the DUI, my use of alcohol, it was really disturbing to me, and I wanted to dig deep and take a look at all of those factors in my life. So I engaged with great effort and earnestness and transparency, and we made really good progress. She released me after a year, finding that we'd accomplished all of those goals, fully resolved any of the concerns that were immediately apparent at that time. Mm-hmm.
If you were faced with similar factors today, and I believe you mentioned work stressors and poor coping mechanisms, how would you handle those now in 2020 compared to how you would have handled them in 2014, perhaps?
Today, I'm a really different person. It's been almost 6 years now since the DUI. Who I am, the way I manage my life, my activities, how I engage in self-care, work-life balance, and in particular, the way that I ask for feedback. I've opened up in vulnerable and authentic ways, and have those relationships where I do actively ask for feedback and support. So today, I honestly don't believe that situation would happen. It wouldn't happen today. It won't happen ever again. And that's because my life is fundamentally different. The way I manage everything on a day-to-day level. And just the transparency and who I am today as far as having additional supports, having different coping, managing everything is completely different. I'm the best I've ever been. Despite health things, I feel like I'm in a position to manage anything that comes my way. And in fact, you know, I have walked through some pretty huge things in my life, and in sobriety, death of my mother, the assault of a very dear friend who had to spend several weeks in the hospital, and now my own cancer diagnosis. I don't feel like there's anything today or going forward that would take me outside of managing my life in a fully healthy manner and balanced manner.
In addition to discussing the therapy you sought, you mentioned that you engaged in AA. Have you completed the 12 steps of AA?
I have. I did that. I requested to do that initially with my individual counselor, and I've gone through them since, you know, within AA meetings. Mm-hmm.
This was everything that you have done prior to kind of board probation. After you were placed on board probation, were you required to see a psychiatrist as well?
I was required to see a psychiatrist for an initial evaluation. That's Dr. Hewlett, who did a whole battery of assessments and testing related to my functioning, specifically related to my safety and competency, specifically related to determining whether or not I had an alcohol dependence problem or alcohol use disorder. So I saw, actually she is a psychologist, not a psychiatrist, I believe, and she did all of the testing. In addition, I do see Dr. Groover, who is the board appointed psychologist or board approved psychologist. I've been seeing him on a weekly basis since probation started for about a year and a half, and then it dropped down to twice monthly.
Can you explain to us briefly how the drop down occurred?
With Dr. Groover, he made the request that that the board approve a decrease in my counseling sessions due to finding that you know, weekly sessions were not necessary. I had made good progress. I'd showed up in truly an earnest and manner and made good effort and didn't have the level of need to be seen on a weekly basis.
And have you discussed your current petition with Dr. Groover?
Yes, I have discussed the current petition. He has been a very strong advocate for me since very early on, and he definitely supports the release from probation.
Since starting board probation, have you engaged in any other mindfulness activities, any other evaluations conducted by others into kind of a deep dive into yourself and the insights?
Yes, definitely. I have. One of the things that in my truly not leaving any stone unturned kind of, you know, deep self-assessment, inventory taking is that I sought out a group. It's the Relational Constellation Institute of California. It's a Santa Barbara group which focuses on deep core issues, family traumas, generational patterns, and it is a group that's been going on for decades, comprised mostly of very mature practitioners, which have decades more experience than I do, which is an incredibly powerful peer feedback and experiential kind of group where we work our own issues, essentially. These groups take place over 2 days, intensive in person, which of course hasn't been going on since February, although we still have a contact, we still have monthly Zoom meetings that we do. So that was part of my commitment to really, working this issue, making sure that I'm really have not allowed for any blind spots in my own assessment of myself. Again, this group is a super powerful group of decades of experience, mature clinicians. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that you stopped drinking after your DUI. You're obviously required to abstain now through board probation. Is it your intention to abstain following board probation as well?
This event, the DUI, is of such magnitude. I mean, it's changed everything in my life. It's changed everything in my life. It pulled the floor out from under me, and as such, I do not wish to be in this position ever again, nor take any kind of gamble on that. So I will continue to abstain. It's not a risk worth taking, and my life is better than it's ever been because of it. I have I've coping and hobbies and joys and friends now that don't include the use of alcohol. So it's easy for me to say, yes, that is not something that will be in my life ever again.
What is the reason why you are seeking early termination of your probation?
Well, I primarily am seeking early termination. One, because of the encouragement and support that I've been given from those that have been working closely with me, including Dr. Eric Groover, who has been a very strong advocate for me to seek early termination of probation. But I certainly didn't make that choice just based on him alone. That also was supported by my supervisor, by friends and family that know me, by my peers and colleagues, by the chief, my employer. So I'd like to request early termination based on all those that work closest with me and know me closest, what they've seen, and their confidence in my growth and the changes in my progress and my stability, to manage and perform ethically and competently, as I have been, without the oversight of the board. One of the other big factors that have come into my life is of course, receiving a diagnosis of cancer, the end of September. And that is something that I'd like to be able to focus on more. My highest priority is my health.
When you say that is something you'd like to focus on more, can you explain that answer a little bit more for us?
Besides my work, which I take great pride and value in, it gives me quite a bit of meaning in my life. I've always been very active and healthy, and now I have, I really need to focus on myself, on my stress levels. I have a medical regimen that I need to comply with that is daily. And I thank you to the board, to your honor, for letting me go first, because I need to get to medical care this afternoon. But that's a daily regimen. I have multiple meetings with teams of specialists, medical doctors who are monitoring my health. And that's just something I'd really like to be able to devote more time to. Yeah.
The board has placed you on kind of its standard terms for somebody who has a DUI in their past. Why do you believe the board should deviate from that and grant you early termination in this matter?
Well, I certainly don't presume to direct the board based on my own assessment of where I'm at. I truly hope that the evidence that's been provided, the statements of support by those that have worked closely with me, from Dr. Groover to Dr. Marcia Hewlett that did the psychological testing, to Dr. Sandor that also did psychological testing, to my friends and family, to my performance evaluations, which have been outstanding, the highest level. You know, I've engaged, I feel, in a way that is above and beyond just meeting the basic criteria of what the board's terms are. I've really done deep dive and soul searching work and continue to do that. It's enriched my life, it's enriched who I am, and it's really also made me a more keen and astute clinician just by having gone through a lot of the personal work that I have.
Is there anything else you would like the board to know?
I hope that I've conveyed how significant this event has been in my life, and that it has truly triggered a complete shifting and transformation of who I am as a person, as a professional, the way I live, my priorities. It's even shifted my own identity, you know, as who I've become and the way I choose friends, the way I manage my life, the choices I make. You know, those events at that time were, looking back, hindsight is 20/20. I was not coping well. I didn't have the supports in place that I do now. I didn't have the ways and the practice of engaging and asking for regular feedback. You know, doing that 10th step on a daily, you know, really doing self-assessment on a regular basis and seeking feedback and asking for support and guidance. So it's because of, you know, the ways that I've changed, the progress that I've made, my performance evaluations that I continue to endeavor in lifelong, you know, self-enrichment, lifelong professional growth, challenging myself. I feel that, you know, the board's time would be perhaps no longer needed, but that's for the board to find. I will defer to the experts in that, including those that have worked with me and support early termination. I want to thank the board for their time. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to the Attorney General and everyone in attendance. Truly grateful. I call this event in my life a tragic opportunity. Truly tragic and terrifying, and it's been transformational for me.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. All right, Ms. Crawford, do you have any questions for Ms. Tomlinson?
I do, Your Honor.
Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Ms. Tomlinson, I wanted to thank you for your statements today and your very thorough petition packet. So I really only have a couple of questions. One is that it appears from your packet and from your statements that you are extremely busy with probation and with other projects that you're involved in, with work and in your community. Do you carve out time for leisure, and what do you do?
Thank you for your question. I absolutely do. Thank you. I have a 80-pound Rottweiler that's snoring behind me right now. Daily walks are something that I do for just mental clarity, stress relief. I do yoga. I also have friends now that I spend time with. I have colleagues that I consult with and just kind of de-stress and debrief with. I make that a regular part of my practice to just really keep that work-life balance in place for me. As I mentioned, I've always been active, and so I do, like to exercise for stress relief and healthy life balance. Yeah, I could go on and on. I like to garden. I make jewelry for stress relief. Don't know if you want to hear about all the stuff that I do. But I have a lot of practices now that are really enrich me, that are really enriching and keep me balanced.
Okay. And my second question is probably in part already answered by the first, but I wanted to ask you about your support structure. Your family, friends, organizations, church, who kind of keeps you grounded and you turn to?
Thank you. One of the most tremendous supports that I have is the Relational Constellation Institute. That is a closed cohort of really magnificent providers, therapists, psychologists, mental health folks that are all committed to doing their own personal work and supporting each other. We have regular contact, even now that it's not in person, and they've become close friends, people I rely on for support. Additionally, there's some of the women in the 12-step and the AA meetings that have become really close friends, beautiful women of service and recovery that have stepped up for me, in particular with my health crisis here as well. And I mean, my life is so different from what it was. I was really living in a lot of isolation before and just not keeping my head up above water, and that's not the case anymore. I have support from my neighbors that know what's going on, and my partner and friends and my Rottweiler. Yeah, I'm also a part of I do some volunteer work with Save a Warrior when I can, but they're mostly, they refer to themselves as wounded healers, so we're really just there for each other.
Thank you so much. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you very much, Ms. Crawford. All right, I'm going to turn to the board members to see if they have any questions, and I'm just going to go alphabetically for just so the board members know. I'll alternate for each petition, so you're not always asked first. And if I leave someone out, then please don't hesitate to speak up. But I think I managed to get a hold of who is on the line here today. So, Mr. Disposti, I believe you have any questions for Ms. Tomlinson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much. More than a question, also, Ms. Tomkins. Okay, I can see you now. So sorry with this new experience. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here today and for also sharing with us your whole story. Your letters and recommendations were already impressive, but also you made yourself vulnerable in sharing your story. So we really appreciate that. And I just, in the name of the board, I'm sure everybody feels the same in sending you all the best for many years to come of future and health. So thank you so much for making the effort. Hopefully we don't keep you too long because I know you have a busy day. A little bit, I was very taken by your journey. You brought us to this journey, and it was very important to see your progress and where you are. Can you speak a little bit more? Because that's also important for us, right? We're here not to punish you, but to protect the public. So I think it would be nice to go in the record about sharing a little bit more about what the probation has done to you at the very beginning, because obviously I can see you walk us through a journey, and at the beginning was, coming to terms with what was, what happened. Can you speak a little bit about how the probation has, perhaps if it has had helped you to come to terms as well? What, or if not, I mean, I don't want to assume anything.
Thank you.
So if you can go and share a few minutes with that. Thank you.
Absolutely. The probationary terms were in some ways an eye-opener, in that while I had immediately started to engage in my own work to reconcile, to rectify, and course correct with my own therapy and whatnot. With the probationary terms, there's so many things. One is it really reinvigorated my passion and commitment for ongoing self-work and professional development, professional education. That has become part of my professional life balance that has a spot that's not going away, now, besides just kind of the minimum, CEUs that we have to do for license renewal. It's now become something that's really gives a lot of inspiration and contributes to my passion in my clinical work. So I love having that part of continuing education, professional development kind of dropped in. The other things that being on the probationary terms has kind of given me is similarly perhaps just the routine of accountability and ongoing feedback from sources higher than myself, supervisor, from groups such as AA cohorts that can give me feedback that I might not be seeing myself. So that peer feedback, professional feedback is something that's been instilled in me through these probationary terms, these almost 3 years now. I think there's nothing but benefit from that, and I'll continue to benefit the rest of my personal and professional life by having these kind of routines instilled in who I am and in the way that I manage both professional and personal life. So those are really big ones. There's so many changes, and there's so many subtle layers to the changes. It's hard to speak to all of them and to name them all kind of here, but those are certainly some. The obvious one, I guess, is also just how much I don't need alcohol or substances in my life. That it wasn't a problem to quit, and yet it was a practice that has just allowed for other things, healthy coping to emerge. And so I've walked through so much sober. I know there's nothing that will take me off that path now.
Thank you again. That's really helpful, because I think it's important for other petitioners, for the public, for ourselves also understand, a little bit more about, we hear stories and feedback how the probation has. Obviously, we understand it is a commitment, and it's very challenging with everyday lives. But at the same time, it's really important because it puts in place those measures where people can follow, right? And so speaking to that, just then I'm moving on again. How you spoke before about your coping mechanism, your totally different space, so that was really clear. But how do you, and I can see you have a huge support system around you, but I also see you have a lot of responsibility. You have very well affirmed in the work you do, and you take a lot of pride. That's amazing. So how do you deal though with situations where your work brings you stress? I mean, that's pretty much every day. And so how do you deal, what are actually your coping mechanism? What have you created around you so that the board can feel like, okay, so if the probation is no longer there, we can feel comfortable that there are other things in place that you can rely on. So what would you say to that?
Thank you. You know, that's, I mean, the picture I can paint for you in 2014, the years prior, is I was really working in isolation. I was the only one on staff. My caseload was maxed. I had a supervisor that had no idea really the work I do. It's kind of an unusual position within the Department of Veterans Affairs to be outreach and working with a court and all of those layers of kind of you know, accountability and stress that come with that. So I was really working in isolation, and again, just not barely keeping my head above water at that time. Since that time, I've advocated to have a peer specialist come in and provide support to help take some of my caseload, do some of the extra supportive work. The peer specialist is a substance abuse specialist, and in recovery himself. There was a letter that he submitted as well. So I now have that support. I also have another social work colleague who has part of my caseload, who is somebody I consult with. We debrief on cases, we consult when needed, as well as I've opened up channels with a psychiatrist within the VA that works part-time in my program now. These are largely efforts that I've made to get these other staff members on board to fill this out and to make it a manageable role for myself. And while those are sort of external to me coping that rely on other people being there, I also have my own internal coping, which is entirely different, where I reach out to peers now, where I do exercise, where I have my personal kind of peer group in that Relational Constellation Institute, you know, cohort there. I have friends that I speak to. And I engage in healthy activities like gardening, like yoga, like meditation, like walking with my 80-pound Rottweiler. Those are all things that are in place now, besides, you know, having developed true friendships with some of the women from AA. There's one that lives about 3 blocks from me, and she lives right in my neighborhood. It's somebody who's part of my life now. And so I have so many layers of support, as well as feedback and accountability from people that know where I've been, that know my journey. So I feel well fortified with those supports, with that accountability.
Thank you, Ms. Tomlinson. I can't thank you enough for being here again today. Your Honor, I don't have any further questions. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Disposti. Mr. Ehrlich, do you have any questions for Ms. Tomlinson?
Good morning, Ms. Tomlinson. Thank you for your candid testimony today. I actually don't have any questions for you, so thank you again, and wish you best of luck.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Friedman, do you have any questions for Ms. Tomlinson?
I have just one question. Ms. Tomlinson, thank you so much for being here, and I really wish you the best of outcome with your health and what you're dealing with right now. I'm just wondering, if you were to go off of probation, how would that change what you are doing and the life that you're living?
Essentially, as far as my daily routine, how I manage my daily and weekly life, my professional work-life balance, I see no changes. I'm going to continue lifelong, you know, self-growth, self-inquiry. I'm going to continue with mental health support, and continue to engage with the women of AA who know my story, who support my sobriety, who are just dear and authentic friends of service. And, you know, I'm going to continue to do all these things, professional development as well, taking care of myself. None of those things are going to change. What will change, I hope, is that I will have, you know, I'll be relieved of worrying about, you know, the drug and alcohol testing in the morning, which is sometimes a stressor, and trying to work that around medical appointments, work schedule. That's really the only thing that is going to change, is that I'm not going to check in remotely to see if I have to you know, UA test or alcohol test. One of the things that I hope will change is I'll get to have little longer walks with my dog, that I'll get to focus on my medical regimen without other distractions, to really focus on my health and being restored entirely to full health. That's what I'd like to change now. I'd like to say I'd be traveling more, but with my health and COVID, that won't happen immediately. But I hope sometime next year that would be a change that'll happen if I'm off probation.
That would be great. You had mentioned 2 organizations in the papers that we read from you. You've been involved with. I know you said that both of them had sort of floated away, and I don't know if they floated away because you were not able to be involved with them anymore. I mean, work with veterans is God's work. So I'm wondering if you're still working, or you're going to resurrect the work with those organizations.
Well, absolutely. There's quite a bit that is just part of my work. Tons of community agencies that I pull in to provide additional resources to the veterans that I work with, to give them, you know, the fullest benefit of all that they need, and where there's gaps in service from what the VA offers. There's a lot that I do as part of my work. That's different from what I do from my heart, that fulfills me in volunteering time also. The Prison Yoga Project is one that I'd worked with previously, as well as an animal rescue, which both of those have you know, needed to take a back seat where I fulfill these other obligations of the board. I did mention I've started again to volunteer for Save a Warrior, which is a nonprofit organization that does retreats for combat veterans and first responders. And I'm just doing very minimal service work now when I can, when the time's right. Not to overtax myself, but it is a great part of you know, what enriches my life is to serve organizations that I find valuable and doing good work.
Great, thanks very much, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Herwick, do you have any questions?
No questions at this time, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe Mr. Maddox, you have any questions?
Yes,
Good
sir.
morning. No, I just want to thank you for your work with the VA. I'm a veteran myself, so I really appreciate sort of your giving back and supporting some of our most vulnerable citizens. So thank you for that. And no, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And then Mr. Ranasinghe, do you have any questions?
Ma'am, are you still active with the Orange County Collaborative Court?
Yes, sir, I am. Yes, I'm still employed.
Okay, so,
yes.
Cool. So do you have pretty regular interaction with law enforcement?
As part of the collaborative team, sir, there's an identified probation officer that is absolutely a regular part of the team. I work very closely with actually 2 probation officers, a district attorney, the public defender, and the judge. We're
okay.
Yes, yes.
And they know you pretty well?
Yes.
Okay, got it. No further questions, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Sovek, do you have any questions?
I do. Thank you so much, Your Honor. Ms. Tomlinson, good morning. And I can relate to your walking. I have a 120-pound Great Dane. We've heard a lot of information about the steps you take for self-care. I actually want to take it back just a tiny bit. How are you personally aware when you're being overwhelmed or overstimulated or being triggered? How are you actually aware that you are personally in that moment?
Right. Thank you for your question. So there's so many things that I'm aware of when I'm kind of like, starting to cap out, kind of top off here with either stress or anxiety. And one is, irritability. One is I get a little more short with my temper. I notice that, I get that compassion fatigue. And I do work so closely with a team, and I'm really candid and open with them. I'll usually catch myself because I care so much for my team and my colleagues. If I find myself getting a little short or snappy, I'll call myself out and I'll kind of draw back in. And one of the probation officers I work with actually plies me with dark chocolate when we were working in person. That was, he would come and deliver some chocolate for me when he knew I was stressed. But besides that, I mean, like my sleep can be disrupted, if I'm really, really stressed. There's so many things that I recognize. I might eat more chocolate. That's kind of a joke with the team that I work with. When I'm stressed, I need chocolate. But it's really, I noticed irritability. I notice I get a little short-tempered. I feel it in my body. When I'm stressed, I feel it in my shoulders, my neck. Massage is something prior to COVID that has been a big part of my self-care and kind of de-stressing. So there's lots of signs. And just as I've mentioned, not only the team I work with, but the people that I have in my life now, lots of people that also kind of know those signs and symptoms when I'm getting a little maxed out and need to take some time. One of the things I didn't speak to that this whole experience has given me is like exquisite clarity on boundary setting now. Which is, tremendous. And it's such a benefit for me now with my health issue, saying no when I need a break, logging off and completing work on time and not running over. I used to, prior to this incident, prior to the DUI, I used to always work overtime, unpaid, uncalculated, whatever, but that was the person I was. And now the boundaries, the work-life balance is just essential, and it's how I operate now. So thank you.
Thank you. No further questions.
Sorry, Judge was muted. All right, Ms. Wong, finally. Any questions for Ms. Tomlinson?
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, Ms. Tomlinson.
Good morning.
Want to wholeheartedly thank you for a very heartfelt testimony that you had. And, also, we really see that, you have done a lot of work, to be where you're at today. Before I move on, one piece of very important advice I have for you is that, in regards to your health, the support system that you establish, it's really important for this stage of your life when you're dealing with, the medical issues. So I want to remind you that, use your support.
Yes. So yes, thank you. It's been a blessing, to have them. Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. So, so it makes me think that, it might, seems that the probation terms, are just so harsh and stuff. But, it seems to me that, when you can establish, that network of support, it's a blessing to this point of your life. So before, and I do want to ask a little bit question, since your testimony mostly is about your self-development, and I want to focus a little bit more on your alcohol use. So, so bear with me. I just want to have a clearer picture about, your relationship with alcohol and stuff. So when is your sobriety date?
My sobriety date, I have 5 years of sobriety. It's June 15th, 2015.
And so that is right. Is that about on the same date of your DUI?
No, it's not. It's several months after, and it's not as if I was drinking afterwards, because I certainly was not. Again, it was a terrifying event. However, it is the date that I claimed it within an AA meeting, and so they kind of put their stamp on it, and that's what it's become. Mm-hmm. So that's when I get my chip.
Yes. So that's really good. I mean, we understand how AA, it really is about the dates you pick. So
yes.
Very good. And so what has been, or maybe what was your relationship with alcohol before? What do you use alcohol for?
In the past, I think I've commented about the isolation that I was working in, and really feeling like I was barely keeping up. And to say that I worked overtime, I'd bring my laptop home and work after I got home late from leaving work. And that was a whole cycle and a whole pattern of isolation, exhaustion, and just not being able to find like any breath or light at the end of the tunnel. And quite honestly, that was, the role that alcohol took for me was just giving me some of that little bit of breathing room at the end of a night, to try to, calm down, relax, de-stress. And I hope that, I've clearly conveyed how that is no longer something that I rely on through all these other practices and supports that I have. But it really was just kind of my de-stressor, and it became, as I didn't develop any other healthier coping, it became, a crutch and something that I leaned on way too much, to the point of, here I am with the DUI. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's very understandable that, the alcohol for you, is about the, a distressor for you. So normally, when you need to distress, how much will you drink?
Normally it was, a glass of wine, maybe two, a few times a week, during the weekday, mostly. The event that was the prior event that led to the DUI was really an exceptional event, in that, I went in exhausted, isolated, professionally, personally, and I was with colleagues, and really, wanted that support, wanted to open up, wanted to be de-stressed, and drank to excess, drank, irresponsibly and dangerously.
Well,
I regret that.
Yes, no, I understand that, I think your testimony has been very consistent, saying that is a single, incident. But I also want to just, kind of have an understanding, about, your alcohol use, and, and because it's really important that, that's, we know how, alcohol, can play a very significant role in people's coping mechanism, especially, when the healthier methods is not being developed or maybe not being used. And so I really just want to kind of like have a, compare and contrast. So don't get me wrong. I get it. I totally understand. Let's see. I think that's about it. So, since you go to AA meetings, so do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
That is absolutely something that I will have lifelong inquiry on, and consider and continue to reflect on, quite honestly. And as I've stated, it's not anything that I'll take any gamble on. by drinking in the future. And as both a professional and as someone who really seeks to leave no stone unturned in my resolving and reconciling these events, I certainly do not rely on my own biased opinion of my own behaviors. That just would not make any sense whatsoever. So in so doing, that is a part of why I've engaged in the expert addiction specialist to assess me, to consult with me, to give me that feedback and guidance. From Dr. Sandor prior to my initial hearing, to Dr. Hewlett and Dr. Eric Groover. Those professionals, we've really dug and looked at all of my behaviors, my history, my past relationship during that time in my life with alcohol. And fortunately, they have not found that I have an alcohol use disorder, and still, that there's no gamble that I'm willing to take on my life, on my health, on anyone else's life or health. So
I get where your mentality is, and that's also a very healthy perspective, for you to continue to re-examine where you're at. Mm-hmm. So maybe put it this way: as of today, do you consider yourself an alcoholic? It's a yes/no answer, I guess.
Right. I'll defer to the experts who I feel are the best ones to answer that. I will say that I had a problem with alcohol during that time. There's a clear problem, absolute clear problem. It was a dangerous problem that caused a dangerous incident in my life. I will not allow that to transpire again at any time in the future.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, so so you defer to the professional, and so so if you really have to pick yes or no, will you say yes or no?
I will say I had a problem with alcohol, and that's something that I will spend my entire life evaluating, and will not take any gambles on that whatsoever. Meaning, I will continue to abstain from alcohol.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Tomlinson, and best of luck, for your health treatment.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So let me just double check to make sure, Ms. Johnson, did you have any other witnesses to present on behalf of petitioner today?
No, Your Honor, just closing argument.
All right, and no additional documents either, other than what's already been admitted?
Correct, yes.
All right, perfect. Was there, Ms. Crawford, did you have any follow-up questions before we proceed to closing?
I don't, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other board member in light of the questions so far? I don't see any indication, so we'll go to closing argument. All right, Ms. Johnson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. As the board aptly noted, the purpose of these proceedings, the purpose of board probation in its entirety, is to protect the public, not to punish a practitioner. And ultimately, Ms. Tomlinson, at least in our opinion, has demonstrated that she is absolutely no danger to the public, but more importantly, that she serves the public, that she has been a devoted servant to the public, not only through her work, but through her volunteer activities and through the activities that she engages on her own. Now, as Ms. Tomlinson has testified, certainly there was reason for board probation initially. She had what could be deemed an unhealthy relationship with alcohol in the past. She turned to it in times of stress, and she turned to it as a coping mechanism. This, of course, led to a very unfortunate choice in her life, which led to her DUI, which subsequently led to the board taking its action. We now evaluate, though, in 2020, whether or not such an action is still necessary, not only for board oversight to be there, but for public protection, whether or not probation still mandates that this is something necessary to determine whether or not Ms. Tomlinson will continue to not only engage in sobriety, but continue to safely serve the public. It is, at least from our perspective, very clear that all evidence indicates that Ms. Tomlinson is not a danger to the public if allowed to operate under her own terms and her own license without additional board oversight. Now, certainly Ms. Tomlinson would still be accountable to the board. All licensees are, regardless of their probation status, regardless of their license status. And certainly she would still be accountable to her employer, someone that she works very closely with, someone that has very close oversight over her. And she would, as articulated by her, be accountable to her friends, her family, and her social support system. Also, though, I hope it's clear through Ms. Tomlinson's testimony that she would be accountable to herself, because ultimately, at least in our opinion, that is what matters the most. Can we trust her? Can the board trust her to stay sober and to stay the type of licensee that the board requires of all its licensees? It is our opinion that hopefully it is apparent that that can be happen, that Ms. Tomlinson can be trusted. And we base this on her testimony, on the documents submitted, on the letters of reference and the evaluations that have been conducted on her, on the continuing education, and on the lack of any concern since December of 2014 that Ms. Tomlinson has raised. Ms. Tomlinson, as she testified, has left no stone unturned in this matter. She has not only engaged in the steps that the board has asked her to engage in through her probation, but she has taken additional voluntary steps. Her first foray into therapy was something that she sought on her own. The first time she attended AA was something that she sought on her own. Her work with the group that she is meeting with for the justice and through her own insight and her own work through them is something that she has sought on her own. She does not simply rely on board terms, nor does she simply rely on the terms of criminal court in order to obtain her sobriety and in order to maintain her sobriety. As a result, hopefully there is substantial evidence to show the board that this is something that Ms. Tomlinson feels inside herself is important, and therefore it's something that she will continue without board oversight. But as mentioned, there is other oversight in Ms. Tomlinson's life. Her work has certainly played a huge role in her life, something that has started before her licensure and has continued since her licensure. And as articulated by both her testimony, as well as the letters that were supported or issued in support of her petition, as well as the evaluations that were also submitted with the petition, the VA is well aware of the situation with Ms. Tomlinson. They conducted their own investigation, separate from the board investigation, one that occurred at a local, state, and national level to determine whether or not they should make an exception to continue to employ her despite her license status. And over and over and over again, at every level at the VA, they found that she was an exceptional employee, but more importantly, that she was a safe employee, that she was safe to work with a population that she had sought out, that she was safe to work with a population that she feels a deep calling for. And it's this safety, it's this sobriety, it's this education that is turned and presented in her petition. We see the safety as well through her letter from Dr. Gruber. Now, certainly she has other providers who have provided support. Dr. Sandor obviously wrote quite an evaluation on her, and she has seen other therapists in the past. But part of the focus for Dr. Gruber is that he was board appointed. This is the person the board has asked her to meet with in order to determine her safety. And not only has he found her safe, but he on his own requested that there be a decrease in their visits, and now has put his full support behind the actual termination of the probation, finding it no longer necessary for public safety. And so ultimately that turns to, why should an exception be made? Now, obviously we believe that the public safety avenue has been met, and so now it turns to, is that enough? Well, because the purpose of the proceeding is not to punish the practitioner, but to protect the public, we believe on the one hand, yes, that is enough. But also Ms. Tomlinson has articulated for this board, hopefully, the reason it is additionally important in her mind that she be allowed to focus on other avenues that will, in many respects, provide additional oversight even once the board is gone. Her health has taken an utmost importance to her, and remaining healthy for both medical issues as well as the lack of any illicit substances and through sobriety is even more important to her than ever. And so, as a result, she is looking for the ability to continue to serve the public, to continue to safely serve the public, and to continue to do so in a manner that is best served for Ms. Tomlinson, and in many cases, hopefully best served by the board, as resources no longer are necessary in order to monitor her, as she has demonstrated that there has no concern since December of 2014 for any follow-up issues with alcohol or the criminal justice system, and no concern since she started board probation almost 3 years ago that she needs oversight or that she will not on her own volition engage in it herself. For these reasons, and more importantly for the reasons that Ms. Tomlinson articulated in her testimony, because ultimately I realize that's what matters the most, we respectfully request that the petition be granted and that Ms. Tomlinson be granted the ability to terminate her probation early. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson, and thank you very much, Ms. Tomlinson, for your time. And I think I can speak for everyone here and say wish you the best of health going forward and best of luck. Thank you so much. This concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed and the case is submitted for decision, and we're off the record in this matter. Ms. Litz, if you could just get me the end time and the page count, that would be much appreciated.
End time is 10:02 and the page count is 55.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks again, Ms. Tomlinson and Ms. Johnson. As you know, we will serve that court reporter form on you as well, so that if you ever wish to order a transcript of the proceedings, you'll have the information to do so. Okay?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you to the board.
Judge, before we attend the next hearing, would it be possible to do a 2-minute break?
Actually, I think we're doing a 10-minute break, right, Mr. Desposti?
Yes, correct. Between every petitioners, we have 10 minutes. So I will say we can reconvene at 10:13 a.m.
Can I make a suggestion here? We're getting a lot of feedback from I'm not to call you up, but Mr. Lewis, can you make sure that you keep muted? When you make noise, it kind of cancels out everybody's video. So, and everyone, that goes for everyone too. Please remain muted when you're not actually talking.
Thank you, Mr. Sodergren. I actually had made a note before our next petition starts to ask everyone else muted. I was like gambling, should I say something or not? And each time it quieted down just in time for me to not interrupt the proceedings, but thank you. Yeah.
Hey, Max, question. 10:13 is a weird time. Can we just go to 10:15? I really don't think it's going to hurt.
I think I can second that. Yes, Mr. Maddox. We'll reconvene at 10:15. Thank you so much. We have a quorum. Looks like we do. I see all the.
All right, again, Mr. Lewis, I don't mean to call you out, but we really need everyone to stay muted unless they're to be talking.
Just for the sake of technology,
I lost my hearing.
I don't know if you're able to mute everyone.
I can mute everyone, and I think that I'll keep doing that. I'll keep trying to. Well, we'll do our best to if somebody unmutes to mute him again. But yes, I'll start out. We can start out by muting everyone, and then we can go from there. And I will do that once you're ready.
Yeah, and Steve, sorry, this is the judge. You have my full permission. Please do that throughout when you see that happening. I mean, even myself, because I forget to sometimes mute myself if it's not necessary. So just please go ahead and mute, because I'd rather have the audio quality be good and everyone.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me the power to mute. I appreciate that.
And Steve, just so you know, Steve, I've changed the settings so everybody is muted when they come into the room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're able to officially reconvene. Good morning, everyone. My name is Max Disposti. I am the chair of the Board of Behavioral Sciences. We're coming back in our petition hearing session. Today it's November 5th, 2020. At the time is 10:16 a.m. again. I will give the floor to our honor, Judge Van Ruben. It's your time. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Desposti. Can you hear me well?
Very well. Thank you.
Excellent. All right. And so just again, for people who are joining us later, we've heard our first petition this morning. We're taking the petition order somewhat from the calendar based on to accommodate logistics. So Ms. Tomlinson's petition was last heard. Our next petition will be Ashley Wen Devine, which is actually currently listed fourth on the agenda. Ms. Devine, are you with us? Now I think you can unmute yourself. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
Now I can hear you. Great,
Hi.
excellent. Thank you so much. And you're just representing yourself today, not an attorney, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. And Ms. Litz, you're with us to start go on the record. Perfect. Let me just see, did I get a thumbs up from you, Ms. Litz? So you don't have, perfect, great, thank you very much. Sorry, you weren't on my field of screen so I could see, thank you. All right, we are on the record before the Board of Behavioral Sciences, Department of Consumer Affairs for the state of California. We will review our next petition, which is the petition for early termination of probation by Ashley Wen Devine. This is LMFT 120413 and APCC 5280. And the OAH case number is 2020100362. My name is Wim van Rooyen. I'm an administrative law judge with administrative hearings for the state of California, and I've been assigned to preside over this matter. Today is November 5th, 2020. The hearing was noticed for 8:30 a.m. It's approximately 10:19 a.m. now. We are conducting this matter via Zoom video conference due to the COVID-19 public health crisis and the governor's executive order N-25-20 dated March 12, 2020. And I will let the record reflect that previously at the start of our meeting today, the board members, there was a roll call of the board members, and we do have a quorum of the board present for purposes of conducting the petition hearing. May I please have formal appearances by the Deputy Attorney General?
Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General.
Good morning to you again, Ms. Crawford.
Good morning.
And on behalf of petitioner, that's you, Ms. Devine.
Hi.
Good morning. Could you just state your name for the record? Thank you.
Ashley Devine.
Good morning to you, Ms. Devine. I know we talked informally off the record, briefly been introduced, but formally, good morning. I just want to briefly outline how the hearing will proceed today. First, the Deputy Attorney General will provide us with a background of the case, the procedural history of the case, and then we'll introduce your petition packet. And then after that, you will have the right to make a presentation under oath to explain why you believe your petition should be granted. And you may also call other witnesses to testify if you wish to have that happen. And you and any of those witnesses would be subject to questioning by the Deputy Attorney General and any of the board members. And again, the board today is primarily concerned with the rehabilitation and your conduct since you were placed on probation. Although we will briefly revisit the issue of what led to the discipline, the main focus really is today's on your rehabilitation and showing that you can safely and competently practice in the state of California. And you don't have to repeat everything that's in your packet. You can assume that the board has carefully reviewed it, but you're certainly welcome to highlight any portions for us that you deem specifically, especially important. And then there won't be an oral decision today. After the hearing, the board will go into a closed session to deliberate, and then you will receive a decision in the mail at some point in the future. All right. Any questions I can answer before we get going, Ms. Devine?
Not at this time, thank you.
Perfect. All right, then I will turn it over to Ms. Crawford to provide an orientation of this case and then introduce the petition packet.
Good morning. My name is Anahita Crawford. I'm the Deputy Attorney General in this matter, appearing on behalf of the state of California pursuant to Code Section 11522. And I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. As a background in this matter, on February 6th and March 3rd, 2017, the petitioner applied for an associate marriage and family therapist and an associate professional clinical counseling registrations, respectively. Both applications were denied and a hearing followed. On July 12, 2018, the petitioner was placed on 3 years probation with terms and conditions. 8 months remain on her probation period. The board filed a statement of issues on October 6, 2017 that had denied petitioner's applications for registrations. The basis for the denial of her applications was due to prior license discipline when petitioner was licensed as a pharmacist with Kaiser Permanente. Between November 2010 and March 21 of 2011, while employed as a pharmacist, the petitioner diverted Vicoprofen tablets. She surrendered her license to the Board of Pharmacy on July 15, 2013. She was also criminally charged for this conduct in Orange County Superior Court. However, she did complete 18 months of a diversion program, and the charges were dismissed on July 24, 2013. When this board issued petitioner her registrations on July 12th of 2018, the petitioner was ordered to comply with standard terms of probation, as well as complete a psychological evaluation, psychotherapy, abstain from controlled substances and submit to drug testing, undergo a physical evaluation, participate in a dependency support program, and reimburse the probation program. She is in compliance with all of her conditions. The psychological and physical exams both cautioned about the need for continued awareness by petitioner, and the physical examination advised intervention pain management services. Your Honor, at this time, I can introduce my exhibits.
That'll be fine. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Ms. Crawford.
Exhibit 1 is the board memo, the memo to the board regarding the petitioner's probation status that I'd like marked and introduced at this time.
Any objection to Exhibit 1, Ms. Devine?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Exhibit 2 is the notification of hearing to petitioner of today's hearing date.
Any objection to Exhibit 2?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Exhibit 3 is the certification of license history. I'd like that marked and introduced.
Any objection to Exhibit 3?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Exhibit 4 is the petition for early termination of probation and attachments and support that were filed by the petitioner that I'd like to mark and introduce as well.
Any objection to Exhibit 4?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 4 is admitted.
The final exhibit is number 5. It is the decision. It is the decision after rejection and disciplinary order, as well as the statement of issues in this case. I would like that marked and admitted as well.
Any objection to Exhibit 5?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
I have no additional information to present at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you so much, Ms. Crawford. All right, Ms. Devine, so now is your opportunity to present your case. Is it your desire to testify today?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, then if I could just have you raise your right hand wherever you are, and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. And because you don't have an attorney to ask you questions, I'm going to allow you to essentially testify freely. Again, as I mentioned earlier on, no need to repeat everything in your packet, but you're welcome to highlight some information that might be in there for the board, provide us with more background information, whatever you believe is relevant in support of the petition. Once you are done, Ms. Crawford, the Deputy Attorney General, may have some questions for you, and the board members may have questions for you. All right? And if there's any question you get posed to today that you don't understand or it's unclear, just let us know. We can get it rephrased or clarified. If you do answer a question, we'll assume you understood it. Fair enough?
Yes, thank you.
All right, great. You may go ahead whenever you're ready, ma'am.
Okay. I'm noticeably anxious right now, and I suspect it will go down as soon as I read my statement. So please bear with me, and thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Attorney Crawford. So I'm just going to briefly read the statement, so to make sure that I'm accurate and succinct. Some of these things that I'm going to share are somewhat difficult for me to speak spontaneously towards, but I feel that it's important for me to be accountable and take ownership for what I've done in the past. So thank you. My testimony will briefly highlight 3 parts. It's going to include who I was when I got in trouble, what I've done over the last 9 years, and who I am today. So before I begin, though, I think it's necessary for me to give some context into my character and how I grew up and how I was socialized. So I'm sure many of you are aware that the topic of mental illness in many Asian cultures can be a source of great stigma and shame, especially in my family and my culture. And to speak before you is part of my testimony of how I've overcome a lot of these issues. I was socialized to believe that crying was a sign of weakness and showing strong emotions was not feminine, and speaking my opinion in objection to an elder or a person of authority was not acceptable, especially if I was a girl. Assertiveness and personal boundaries were truly foreign concepts to me, both in my home and in the mainstream American society in which I grew up. I was very conscientious, agreeable, and defaulted to smiling a lot, no matter the situation. If I was confused, I would smile. If I was happy, I would smile. If I was upset, I would smile, because that was safe for me. I would often be teased by my family members for having an emotional reaction. I'm highly sensitive, and I've been teased pretty much my whole life from my siblings and my extended family. I thought there was something wrong with me, but after doing extensive work in therapy, I no longer believed that there was something wrong with me. So growing up, the concepts of saving face and deference were ingrained in me from a very early age. So the reason why I am on probation stems from an incident that occurred in 2011, as Attorney Crawford outlined. I was a practicing pharmacist who diverted prescription pain medication. Yes, it was truly unprofessional conduct, and it was something that I was deeply ashamed of. So why did I do such a drastic and foolish thing that would jeopardize my career, something that I worked so hard for? I believe that it was more of a mental health issue rather than a moral one. I was experiencing profound anxiety and depression while suffering from PTSD at the time. And I've learned all this through therapy, by the way. I did not have any insight into who I was when these things occurred. I had been robbed at gunpoint for OxyContin while I was working as a pharmacist at an outpatient pharmacy. I pled for my life while the robber continued to point a gun at me and asking me for more because he didn't believe that I didn't have any more of the drugs that he wanted. But you see, I remained strong, quote unquote, seemed unfazed, and continued to work in a very robotic manner. I left that position. It was an outpatient pharmacy, and I found another position at Kaiser, which seemed to be more safe because it was a bigger facility with security. Several events happened during my time at that position that eventually caused me to divert drugs. So my first or second year working there, I was sexually harassed by a male colleague, which his mannerisms and the things he said brought up repressed memories from my childhood. Images and visions of sexual mistreatment as a little girl continued to flash for me, and it was like a scary movie. And I didn't talk about it because I was deeply ashamed, and who was I to approach, because I was very scared and I was afraid of retaliation. At that time, I also learned that my mother was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer. And along with that, I had been recovering from abdominal surgery. So I was taking prescribed pain medication post-op. It seemed to help me push away all of the difficult feelings that I was feeling. And instead of asking for help or asking for refills, I continued to self-medicate on my own by diverting prescription medication, my pain pills. Why did I not ask for help? I reflected on that deeply, and through a lot of work in therapy and research on my own, through my graduate counseling program. I believe that I was in a flight mode, like the fight, flight, freeze response that many of you are aware of. So I continued to hide from the world, and escaping with substances was a way for me to feel quote unquote safe. I was hiding from the world, my problems, my shame. I was hiding from myself and all of the emotional turmoil that was going on in my life. It seemed that my rational brain was offline. I was deeply ashamed of my behaviors because I asked myself, how can someone so educated as me resort to doing such a stupid thing like diverting drugs? At that point in time, seeking mental counseling was a scarier prospect than being caught. And that was exactly what happened. After they did a drug inventory audit, I was questioned, and I was very, very relieved that I was caught. I admitted my guilt for my wrongdoing. I eventually, soon after, quit that job. I enrolled in a rehab and signed up for a recovery program just exclusively for pharmacists and healthcare professionals. I completely embraced the recovery program. It was the help I needed for so long. My mental health issue probably started way before that incident. In recollection, I had an eating disorder, mainly bulimia, when I was in high school, along with depression, where I'd often have crying spells alone in isolation. It never occurred to me at that time that mental health counseling was an option, even though I knew that there was something inherently wrong with me. I shouldn't be crying so much all the time. But I pushed on, didn't tell anyone because of the perceived stigma and my own feelings of shame. I did not want to be perceived as crazy, because at that time, that was what I was taught to believe. So I just mentioned that I entered a pharmacy recovery program because I knew the charges were coming. It was an intensive diversion program, but this was something that I really appreciated because I realized I was not alone, that there were other highly educated individuals who had substance abuse issues. And I opened up to a whole new world of learning to accept myself, and sharing with other individuals helped me so much in my own healing process. My feelings of shame started to slowly fade. And at the same time, my employer, of course, charged me, and I had to go to Superior Court of Orange County, and I was ordered to enroll in an 18-month rehab program. I don't believe they have it anymore. But I worked both programs and completed all my requirements, and my charges were expunged in July of 2013. While my working both programs was very intense and time consuming, I was very committed and passionate about growing and healing. Especially, I wanted to get my life back together. I had 2 small children at the time. Well, they were approaching middle school. I wanted to be a better parent, a better role model, and I needed desperately to repair my marriage. So soon after the drug program that I mentioned, I was in a major auto accident where I was rear-ended, and it left me with an injury to my spine. That occurred in 2013, so it's been 7 years. I went to the ER, still shocked and dazed and confused. I refused pain medication because I was so afraid to jeopardize my sobriety, something that I worked so hard for over the past 2 years once I enrolled into the program. But 2 days after the accident, my pain was excruciating, and I just really had to get the pain management I needed to function. So during the recovery from my car accident, which was several months, I had a lot of time to reflect on what I wanted to do with my life. And I had an existential crisis, as it were, because of my new physical limitations. So what did I decide to do? I took a leap of faith and I enrolled in a counseling program at Cal State Fullerton to pursue my dream of becoming a marriage and family therapist, which I thought about even in high school. I wanted to pursue a career in psychology, but was told that that wasn't a real science. And so I pursued the pharmacy medical career path at the advice of my parents. And like a good girl, of course, I did what they told me to do. I was thrilled when I got accepted, and I enrolled in the program. And once I received my letter of admission, my life even started to change even more. I always had a love of learning, and it was my only source of self-esteem prior to working on myself in therapy. I excelled, and upon graduation, I soon applied for a AMFT license number. However, I was denied an associate number due to the incident that I had just described that occurred to me as a pharmacist in 2011. I was deeply discouraged, though I didn't give up my dream. I determined to appeal, so I appeared before an administrative judge to plead my case and ask for a license to practice psychotherapy, where my hours would count towards my licensure. It was 18 months since my application for a number until I actually got one. And it was very difficult for me, but I persevered because I believe this is my life's work. I'm happy to announce that I recently earned my LMFT this past summer. I am proud that my rehabilitation, my integrity, and my dedication and safety as a mental health professional have been acknowledged by those who work closely with me. I have transformed my pain into my purpose and my passion. I love being a therapist, and helping clients become better versions of themselves is a true honor and gift for me. So I'm gonna stop with my testimony right now instead of reading any more, and I would be happy to answer any questions about what I shared with you in the above testimony about who I was, who I am today, and how I transformed. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Crawford, and she may have some questions for you. Ms. Crawford.
I do. Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Devine, how long were you diverting the drugs from Kaiser?
Probably for about a year.
Okay. And you were using those substances to self-medicate?
Yes.
Okay. How did it help with what you were feeling?
I didn't feel my physical pain, my emotional and mental pain. I became a robot, as I said, and it was quote unquote how I coped. by not feeling.
What was the physical pain that you were experiencing?
Well, initially it was from abdominal surgery, but as I explained, that, resolved, but I continued to divert on my own.
Okay. Do you consider yourself an addict?
Back then, yes, but as you asked me today, I do not.
Okay. And back then, what year would you say that was?
2010, 2011.
2010? Okay. And what did you consider yourself an addict of? What were you addicted to?
Pain medication or narcotics.
Okay. Do you have a sobriety date from that?
8/11/11.
What is significant about that date?
That is when I found a new way of living. I found AA and I started my recovery. So it was a major turning point in my life.
I'm sorry, there was some disruption. You said you found AA and
the recovery, going to rehabilitation. Okay. I found a whole new way of living. I found support that I desperately needed.
And you said you had gotten into an accident and you did have to take some pain medication. What year was that?
That was 2013.
Okay, so you had 2 years of sobriety.
Yes.
Do you still take any of that pain medication for your neck?
I do.
Or for your back? You do? Okay, and what pain medications are you taking now?
I am taking Percocet or Vicodin, depending on the severity of my pain.
Do you need to take that daily?
I do. Because without it, I would be in excruciating pain.
So how do you protect your sobriety while needing to take these pain medications?
Thank you for asking that. I'm under medical supervision. I have a pain management doctor and I get treatments. I do everything that is offered to me, physical therapy and other interventions. And at this point, my neck injury is not quite at the verge of having surgery, but eventually it will get there. So right now, it's all the treatments that are offered to me to manage.
And are you still involved in AA?
Yes.
Do you still have that same sponsor? I believe it's Miss Sinner.
Yes.
And is she aware of your continued need to use your medication?
Yes, she is.
Okay. And how has that affected, if at all, her sponsorship of you and how she's able to sponsor you to maintain sobriety?
So I'm very transparent, and if it's under medical supervision with a legitimate prescription and a legitimate diagnosis, that doesn't consider that to be an impingement on sobriety.
Okay. You've detailed for us the steps you took to heal from a lot of trauma that you had experienced. What is your support system now? Who is that, and what does that look like?
I have several. First is my husband. Like I said, I worked on my marriage, and we are able to speak to each other as confidants, as friends, and I am able to share myself authentically. So that was one major support that shifted. I have a strong network of AA friends. I have 3 women who I can call up at any time and speak to. And then I also have professional colleagues. I have 2 that are very close friends. So that's more of a professional friendship, but that also helps. And I have my therapist who I dearly, dearly appreciate. So I call them trees. These women and my husband are strong sources of wisdom and support. When I need something, I lean on them. I go there and find shade and shelter. I don't have to do anything by myself anymore. And I know how to ask for help now. I'm not isolated.
Why are you asking to terminate your petition early?
Several reasons. First is that I haven't shared this, but my eldest sister is in hospice care. So for the last year, she has been gravely disabled in terms of mental health. She has a severe mental illness and is unable to care for herself. So I've been helping my mom. My mom lives an hour away. My sister lives with my mom as support, but also as an interpreter, because my mom doesn't speak English very well, and my sister is not cognitively alert enough to take care of herself. And just this past week, she's out in hospice care right now. So that's been something very difficult as a family for me too, as my sister to deal with. So there's more time. I also want to pursue more professional pursuits. I want to finish my EMDR training. And I also would like to explore different specialties. Right now, I'm kind of a generalist. So that's a passion I have, because I've worked in the past 5 years at a nonprofit. It's multicultural, community, low income, underserved, and I absolutely enjoy it. I met a lot of different cultures and learned a lot about different cultures. And I think one of my strengths is navigating 2 different cultures. My master's thesis was about social anxiety, depression, and the intersectionality with parenting and being torn between 2 cultures, because that was my path as a child. I often got confused about what was one expected at home and then how I appeared in society. It was just very difficult for me to find my voice. So that's an area of specialty for me. And I feel that I have transformed my life, that I have gained rehabilitation. And I feel that I have established a safety record and believe that I no longer need the additional oversight of being on probation. So for those reasons, I would just like to have more time with my family, and also my 2 boys and my husband, which they feel my time is being stolen by other endeavors, but that's where I'm at.
If your probation was terminated, what would you be doing? What would you be doing differently than what you're currently doing on probation? Would anything change?
The only thing that would change is not calling in and checking in every day and working that program. I still have my support network. They are my lifeline. I love the women.
Where do I turn off?
And sorry, I got distracted. I continue to work with my therapist. I feel that she is also a very integral part of my life. So that's not going to drop away. I continue. I'm also in I want to say like a Buddhist type group. They are older women who share their wisdom and strength. It's through the Eastern philosophy, but it's also a lot of those members are in recovery. So that's such a rich place for me to get support.
Which way to transcend one from winding?
I'm sorry, I do hear that. It looks like there's an interruption on the line.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I believe that sounds like Sabina. Could you Because I cannot see who else is actually on the, I apologize for that, but Sabina, if you can make sure you're off your phone. Thank you.
I'm muted. I was.
Okay, Ms. Lids, this is Judge Van Royen. Were you able to get all of the testimony, or do we need to go back a question or so?
No, I was able to get it. I was about to interrupt though.
Thank you.
But we
Okay.
can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, go ahead, Ms. Crawford.
Thank you. Ms. Devine, what have you learned during your probation period that will assist you in not repeating the conduct that was contained in the statement of issues?
Thank you for asking. I learned a lot of things, so let me try to organize my thoughts. I learned that the more humble I become, the more wisdom, I guess, more insight that I gain. My humility has been a really strong facet of my recovery. I learned that my past doesn't define me, and with each growing day, the shame has more and more dropped off. And I've learned that this recovery is a lifelong process, and that probation, at first I was very upset that I had to go on probation, but I understand the need for oversight and to protect the public. I mean, their safety is number one, because if I was a client and I knew my therapist was safe and competent and healthy, that's very assuring. So I really understand that. That was kind of a change in mindset for me. So even though it's been really difficult in many different ways, I understand the need. So that has been a big growth for me. And I realized that practicing as a therapist is a privilege. And for me, it is an honor for another individual to work with me at such a vulnerable level. And I find that so very rewarding.
Mm.
And I wouldn't want to jeopardize that, because this is something I love to do.
Good. I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions related to your licensure. As I mentioned at the beginning, you did seek registration as both a marriage and family therapist and professional clinical counselor. Why did you seek registrations in both?
Well, that's a good question. Because I'm anxious and I think about the future, in case my husband and I decide to relocate to another state, I would have that in my back pocket just in case, my LMFT would not transfer. So it was just an insurance, another level of taking care of myself and providing for my family.
Okay. And I also noted that in your registration history, it indicated that your associate professional clinical counseling registration expired a couple times. Once was for failing to take the law and ethics exam, and another time for failing to pay renewal fees. Can you explain what was going on there?
So the first time I did not, I was not aware that it was a separate law and ethics exam. Okay. I was not aware, I didn't do enough research. And the second time, I think I was just dealing with so much of my sister and my family that I truly forgot. I don't really recall, but it was a difficult time. And I think it was just a couple of days, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
I am muted again. Sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Crawford. And so now I'm going to have the board members see if there are questions, and I'm going to go in reverse alphabetical order this time, starting with Ms. Wong. Do you have any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Devine, good morning. Thanks for being on the board to, to share your case. So I appreciate, your testimony to really give us a good overview, of how, your cultural background couple up with, some traumatic events, and then using, medication as a way to cope, and then your recovery process. So really wonderful. Thank you so much. So on that, I'm curious that, the shame, that, and all these, cultural aspects in relating to your family background, definitely is one of the factors, kind of you growing up and, and kind of molding the way for not seeking help and all these stigma and whatnot. So how are you relating with your family now? And how do you cope with that family, that culture, that take one Asian to know one Asian. So, the shame and whatnot. How do you deal with it now?
Thank you for asking. I have really good personal boundaries, and I am able to separate what I chose to do for a living from their objections, their lack of understanding about my passion and the value that mental health can provide many people. They are still quite in the dark about that. They don't seem to be very proud of the fact that I'm doing this, but that, that doesn't matter anymore. And when I see my sister, I'm reminded every day of the fact that there is so much stigma, because that's also related to her illness. And it makes me more passionate about wanting to do more outreach and help other women, especially Asian women. I believe they are the highest, don't quote me, but the last time I read when I did my research is that the suicidal rate for young Asian women is the highest when I did my research. So that's quite unfortunate, because I could easily have been in that category. I mean, when I was 16, I did have suicidal ideation. And that's silly, because I'm such a worthy person, but having that stigma prevented me so much shame and such a barrier to asking for help. And I went decades just thinking there's something wrong with me and just feeling so anxious. It's so treatable. And, that's part of my passion of becoming a therapist, my work as a therapist. I've helped quite a few young women who are divided in their culture, being born from a different culture and then being raised here as an Americanized person. So I love that part of my work.
Right. Do you have any of the support system within your support system? Do you have any people who share that bicultural aspect? It's very different, when you talk to people not of your race origin.
Sure. I can think of one of my closest friends. She is of Middle Eastern descent, and we talk a lot about codependency, which she didn't really know what codependency was. And I'm like, honey, that's codependency. So we are able to share many of our similar struggles growing up. I mean, I didn't really know what codependency was because I was swimming in it my whole life. And I often get asked, well, Ashley, is codependency bad for my clients? When I bring up the term, they're like, oh. So how I present it is, because this is one of my core issues, is that it's not necessarily good or bad. It's what is healing and healthy for you, because self-sacrifice is okay to a certain extent. So yes, I think I over answered that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think you definitely point out, that the tendency of codependency, which actually, led to, such a, it's bad, for your self-esteem and, even for, every day, it just zap your energy, because you have to, because you cannot live as an authentic self. So, so I congratulate you for being able to, to stand up, to basically tell the culture is like, I know where you are, I am not going to be part of it. So that's really wonderful. So I have a kind of like a irrelevant question, in relating to your pharmacy license. So, I know you surrender your license, right? So, any thought or possibility for you to, get back to that part of the career?
Sure. I was granted the, after 3 years after surrendering, if I wanted to reinstate it, I had that opportunity. So that's something that I could pursue if I wanted to. However, I'm very satisfied with my career path. So it's part of my history.
But being therapists earn less money than the pharmacist.
This is true, potentially. But that was a hard decision for me to switch. That was one of the main criteria. But you know what? My mental health is priceless. I mean, yeah, it might be funny to say, but the things that I've gained going through recovery, my relationships have blossomed. I'm such a more healthy and happy person. I wouldn't go back to pharmacy with the income, not in a heartbeat.
Right. Thank you so much. This is really wonderful to hear from you that our mental health professional is worth everything. So thank you so much. I have no more questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wong. All right, next, Mr. Sovek, do you have any questions for Ms. Devine?
I do, thank you so much. And just as we begin, could you confirm with me the pronouns you would like me to address you with today?
She, her, thank you.
Thank you so much. Christina, Ms. Wong had brought up a little bit of the pharmaceutical career. And I actually want to see if you can help me understand, as a pharmacist, what are your basic ethical standards?
To do no harm, to keep the public safe, to ensure that medication is delivered in a very clinically appropriate and therapeutic manner.
And do you feel that in this journey that you went through in your pharmaceutical career that you were able to maintain those ethical standards, or were there breaches as you see them?
Sure, there was definitely breaches. I didn't see them at the time because I was so embroiled in my PTSD and my own mental health issues that I knew it, but it just went out the door. I was so caught up into that addictive cycle. But yes, I did potentially put others in harm's way, and luckily I did not. I didn't have any incidents, what they call dispensing errors, remarkably. So, but yes, I did put the safety of the public at risk.
Okay. And in your now current career as a therapist, what do you see as the ethical standards of a therapist?
First and foremost is to serve the client what is in their own best interest, and to be a safe practitioner, and to abide by all the ethical standards bestowed upon me. And I take those very seriously because, like as I said, I'm very privileged to do this type of work. I feel very privileged.
Mm-hmm. And so if I can just shift my question a tiny bit, what would you say for you personally is how you would implement those ethical standards in your day-to-day practice? Like you personally, your ethical standards coming into this profession.
Can you rephrase that in a way? Help me understand a little bit better what you...
So, as the answer that I heard from you would be very great on the LMFT ethical exam, the legal and ethical exam. But I'd like to know on a more personal level for you, how do you approach the ethics of this profession? How do you implement it? How do you see it influencing how you interact with clients, with note-taking, with just your personal way of bringing the ethical standards of an LMFT into practice, into real life?
So how would I approach it personally?
Mm-hmm.
So I take my position very seriously. And yes, even though I answered those with two clinical responses, I do really believe that my job is to find what is in the best interest of my client. I truly do believe that. It's not about what I think therapeutically or what interventions I think would best serve them. I work with them at their level of understanding, at their level of insight, and at their level of willingness to change in what's comfortable for them. I don't want to go too fast or be too advanced, or I just meet them where they're at. And I do so in a way that I feel is very compassionate. And I really reserve judgment. And that's something that I haven't spoken about, but that was also in my own healing journey of learning not to judge myself. And as I do so, I learn less and less to judge the people because I don't know what they've been through. Like people don't know what I've been through. It's like, Ashley, why are you so dumb to throw your career away? It's not a cognitive thing. It's more of an emotional, spiritual thing, if I may say that. So I do care with my heart, and I use my clinical skills, and I also have a very good professional boundary, and I'm always aware of that. Because I told myself when I started this work that if I had to take the client's problems home with me, I would not be a good therapist. And so far over the past 5 years, I feel that I have pretty good, strong boundaries, and I still love what I do because I hear stories of, oh my God, I'm so jaded, and, and everyone's experience is different as a clinical helper. So does that give you a little bit more of what?
Yes, thank you so much. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ranasinghe, do you have any questions for Ms. Devine?
Hello, Ms. Devine. I read over your petition with great interest. On the one hand, you have done some wonderful, remarkable work. And on the other hand, this was a very serious incident, a very dangerous incident. The board is guided by public safety. If there was one thing that you could tell us, how can the board ensure that the public will be safe if you are terminated off of probation or the board modifies your probation? How can we ensure that the public will be safe given this highly, highly dangerous incident that occurred?
Sure. Thank you for that question. I've thought about this. So the first thing that comes to my mind is that I absolutely love my life right now as it is. I love what I do, the work in a clinical setting. And I take the utmost care to respect the safety of the clients, but also safety of my family, also the safety of myself. I do not ever want to go back to that place of being so vulnerable and so emotionally and blind. So how I see it is that I will continue with the therapy, and I will continue with the lifelong friends I know I've made through the AA. And so how I thought about it this morning was where I went when I hid and I ran away from myself is like a dirty, murky basement where I would shove all my stuff, right? So that was my emotional baggage. And I did that for quite a while. But how I see how I've transformed my life is that I was forced to go down there and clean out all that clutter. So I cleaned it out corner by corner and brought in some light. I've remodeled it. And now it's not a dirty, murky, dingy place anymore, but rather one that has entertainment. There's music, there's lights, there's games. It's a place of entertaining. So I'm willing to talk about my vulnerability and ask for help. I'm becoming more and more self-aware. And I think that was a major shift in my own transformation. I became aware and I stayed with my difficult feelings and I worked through them. I hope that.
No, that's actually exactly what I was looking for. So those cultural barriers that prevented you from seeking help in the first place, those very powerful cultural barriers, you have done substantial work, and you would feel comfortable asking for help if you ever swung toward that situation again. Yeah. Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. Mr. Maddox, any questions for Ms. Devine?
I actually do have a question, but I have a question for you. Could we take a 5-minute break? I need to take a 5-minute break or 3-minute break, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, that's fine. Let's go off the record. It's 11:12. We'll come back at around 11:17 or so.
Thank you.
Sounds great. There.
Yes, I'm here, ready to go.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone ready to proceed? Okay, we are back on the record after a brief break. Ms. Devine, I'll just remind you that you're still under oath. You understand that, right? Make sure I can't hear you, Ms. Devine. Are you muted?
Oh, hi. Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Yes, I don't need to swear you in. I just wanted to remind you again that you're still testifying and still under oath. You understand that, right?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Mr. Maddox, I believe you were about to start your questioning.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for coming today, Ms. Devine. I appreciate your time and just hearing the progress that you've made in your recovery and in your wellness. I'm curious, when you talked about your support system, well, here's a question. I think it said in your paperwork, do you currently have a sponsor?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I noticed is that when you talked about your support system, you mentioned your husband, AA friends, and colleagues, but you didn't mention your sponsor. And I'm curious, well, could you maybe explain to the board why you omitted that person?
I don't think I did it consciously. Didn't I say something about my support system being my AA and the lifelong friends that I've made?
So you did say that, but a sponsor is different than an AA friend. So you usually a sponsor is a specific person and a really sort of specific resource. So I'm just curious, maybe you could talk to us about your sponsor, your relationship
Sure.
with that person, because that's an important part of your ongoing wellness too.
Sure. So she is someone that I consider a person of accountability that I often share with. I think through my own, and this is just how I see it, maybe we become better friends through the years. So I didn't delineate that. I just kind of fused her in, but I do see your question and understand the difference that you present. Yes, she is my sponsor more so than a friend. But
okay. And the reason why I asked that question is typically a sponsor is more than just a peer. There's someone who has significant life experience, hopefully beyond what you have. And so some of the hurdles and challenges that you're going through, they can speak to because they have been a sojourner on that same journey. So that's really the reason why I asked and make that distinction. So thank you. So as you could imagine, and you probably have already experienced as a therapist, one of the things that comes up pretty often is, I'm sure you're familiar with countertransference. You're working with clients who sort of pull things out of you that either you didn't know were there or you did know were there. And now you're looking at whether it's shame or anger or, whatever's going on. So I am curious sort of what has changed in terms of your rehabilitation between your first experience and when, for lack of a better term, you weren't able to reach out and get support, and now, because those inevitable things will happen with clients or life. And I'm curious what you're going to do differently this time if there is a experience that evokes similar feelings and emotions. I'm curious.
I feel that I am much more self-aware, and countertransference is something that I've dealt with. And my supervisor would, if she were here, she would tell you that I'm one of the first people who are going to raise my hand and talk about the countertransference issue. So I don't shy away from it because I don't want to have that between myself and my client. So I know when to discuss it. There's a level of transparency, and I also want a good boundary with who I'm helping. So yes, I do pick up the phone or pipe up first in a meeting, a supervision or just colleagues.
Okay. If you were to be removed from probation or when your probation terminates, could you tell the board sort of what services, if at all, you would plan to continue to participate in to support your ongoing health and wellness? Like, what would you continue to do?
I will continue working with my therapist because I really admire her and she's helped me a lot. I would continue to go to the Sunday meetings, which is, I think I mentioned earlier that it's an AA/Buddhist group. We kind of use the lens of Eastern philosophy to solve life problems. I would continue to work with my sponsor. I don't think I would change very much besides, checking in every day. I continue to take advantage of all the new resources that I've gained throughout the years.
Okay. And then one last question. And those are famous last words because I say that a lot and then something else pops up. I'm curious, did you engage in therapy before it was court mandated when you were placed on probation with the board, or did you pursue that on your own before that? Had you done that before?
I did not have therapy. I did not seek therapy until this incident happened. And so when I made that first phone call to enroll in the pharmacist recovery program, there is a twice weekly group meeting. So that was my first experience of therapy. So before individual therapy, I had the opportunity to meet twice weekly with, like I said, medical professionals, going through the recovery process. So that was very much welcome and needed because I sense a lot of stigma drop away. And I continued that for 2 years. And then I also went to rehab, and then I worked with a one-on-one counselor. And then I went to group therapy through that program and also through the drug diversion program. So the first 2 years I had a lot of therapy.
Okay. So it sounds like you did a lot of rehabilitative services, but you weren't in individual therapy per se with a therapist, like you did counseling and group therapy, things like that.
Yes. And I started working with a one-on-one probably a month into my recovery program. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your time. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you very much. And next up, let's see, alphabetically, Ms. Herwick, do you have any questions for Ms. Devine?
No question.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman.
So much for being here and being so honest about everything that you have gone through. We really appreciate that. I am a public board.
I'm sorry, this is Judge Van Rooyen. I'm sorry, Ms. Friedman. I just want to make sure because we're having a lot of background noise, and I'm concerned our court reporter can't hear. So again, Mr. Lewis, if you could please mute yourself so that the testimony is clear. Thank you.
Sorry.
Why don't you attempt again? Sorry, I really apologize to interrupt you, Ms. Friedman. I just wanted the record to be clear.
I could hear the same thing. Thank you. And I just want to reiterate, thank you so much for being here. I'm a public member of the board, so I am very interested in, of course, in the public safety. And one of the things that we're all very aware of and that you very, very articulately pointed out is how unacceptable mental health treatment is in the aging community. And with this pandemic, we know that even more people are in need of some sort of mental health treatment. It may not be diagnosable illnesses or anything like that, but people are suffering. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts, if you were to be released, for example, from probation, you'd have some extra time. Would you be doing anything to communicate with the community about mental health and the availability of mental health treatment? Have you thought of that?
Yes. So you're referring to like outreach? Is that, if I understand you correctly? Like, okay. So one thing that I have been thinking about for a long time is to start blogging. And I'm starting to set up a website, and I haven't devoted a lot of time and energy towards that because of other things going on in my life. But I think blogging is a great way to start, because most people, when they need help, they go online and search something. So I thought about blogging about mental health issues, such as social anxiety, is I think as a bridge, as a way to have people get more information.
Are you specifically talking to the Asian community, Asian American community?
No, I'm going to make it broad, but I'm also going to like specialize in, for cultural comparison, kind of that. But I've been thinking about that, but no, it's for everybody. But I think there is a stronger need in the Asian American community because they are so reluctant to seek help, and a safer way to provide some much needed psychoeducation is through Facebook, through the web, through blogging.
Well, okay, you'd probably know better how to communicate with that community than I, but I'm just hoping that you will be able to eventually to do something, because I think that's really going to be quite important. I have no more questions. Thank you very, very much.
All right, Mr. Ehrlich, do you have any questions for Ms. Devine?
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Devine. Thank you, as the other board members have said, for being here and for being so candid about your story and what's going on. I had, I suppose, a question. I guess it's a little bit more of a concern than a question. I'm wondering, I know you talked about the incident that occurred while you were a pharmacist and kind of what maybe led up to that, stress, PTSD, other stressors in your life that were going on. And it sounds like from what you were saying, what you've been talking about, what you've been doing now, that you also have a lot of stressors in your life right now. You've talked about your sister, your career, family wanting more time from you. And I know you also mentioned that because of, your injury, you are taking what is considered to be, strong pain medication, similar to what was at issue that led to the discipline. So I'm wondering that with the fact that still taking pain medication, also having a lot of stressors in your life right now, what sort of safeguards are in place to ensure that something like that doesn't happen again? Are you checking in with somebody daily? How can we ensure that you're going to be safe in the public setting?
Thank you for asking that. So first of all, the very first person I'm accountable to is my spouse, because I see him every day. He's a pharmacist, so he's very aware of my journey, where I'm at, and my need to take prescription pain management for my injury. So that's my first level of accountability. And he knows and sees and reads my thoughts. So he's very aware of my moods. And when I'm stressed out or overwhelmed, he picks up on it right away, because we've been together for over 22 years. And I am much more open and honest about where I'm at. And I don't hesitate to talk about my feelings, or my feelings of overwhelm, or whatever I'm feeling that day in particular. So I mentioned to you earlier that when I was in high school, I had an eating disorder. I was bulimic. So I guess that was my first addictive pattern, as far as I can recall, that I used food to escape, right? I would binge, and then I would purge, and I used food in a very unhealthy way. But I don't have that relationship with food anymore. I eat because I need to eat. I don't starve myself, but I don't overeat. So I need food to survive, to function, right? To live a good life. I need nourishment, physical nourishment. So I kind of liken that to my need for pain medication. I used to take medication to escape, to run and hide because I didn't have any coping and I was very isolated. But how I see my use of pain medication is paradoxically, when I manage my pain, I am more present to life. I am available. I'm not distracted by my pain because when I'm in a lot of pain, I can't be present. And I have no quality of life. So the way I use medication is out of necessity to live the life I want to live instead of hiding or, becoming a therapist is also very healing for me because I have a life purpose and I really enjoy what I do. So it's more of a necessity to have my ability to work and to just live my life in a more manageable way. So I don't have, does that make sense? Maybe I'm talking too much right now, but.
No, it actually does make sense. And I was just, looking for you, and you did talk about some sort of, I don't want to say accountability, but something that can possibly, I guess, hold you accountable, or some sort of daily check-in. And you said, you mentioned about your husband being a pharmacist, and so, that sort of does make sense to me. So, I think you addressed my question, my concern. And I don't think I have anything further. So thank you again.
All right. And Mr. Disposti, do you have any questions for Ms. Devine?
No, just a comment, Ms. Devine. Thank you for being here today. Thanks for your patience as well. And that will be it from me. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you so much. And then Ms. Devine, let me just make sure, was there, I know you faced a lot of questions. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we conclude your testimony?
I just want to thank everyone for giving me the time and the attention to share my recovery story. I really appreciate this opportunity and to share my story and being able to show up and use my voice. So this is also part of my transformation and my growth. So thank you so much for providing this opportunity for me. And thank you, Your Honorable Judge, for being here and showing up for me as well.
Thank you, Ms. Devine. And then again, I'm just checking just to make sure there were no additional documents you wanted to introduce other than what we already introduced earlier, correct?
That's correct.
And you don't have any other witnesses that you wanted to testify today?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Again, no compulsion, just making sure we got everything covered. Ms. Crawford, any last questions before we conclude the hearing?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Ms. Devine, this concludes the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed and the case is submitted for decision. Thank you very much for your time and testimony today, and we wish you the best of luck. We are off the record in this matter. And Ms. Litz, if you could just give me the final information and time and page count, please.
10:35 is the end time and 48 pages.
48.
I'm sorry, did I 11:35? Did I say 10:35?
I think you did, but and I robotically wrote it down, so I'm glad to. All right. And was it 48 pages you said?
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Devine, just so you know, I will make sure that the Office of Administrative Hearings serves you with a copy of the court reporter form, the information. That's why I was asking for it. So that way, if you ever wish to order a transcript of your testimony and the evidence today, you can get the information off that form. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time and testimony. And then, Mr. Disposti, I'm assuming, is it a 10-minute break now, or I defer to whatever you're...
Yes, it is. I just don't want to assume that my fellow board members are okay with having this break and do another hearing. That usually
I have a question.
And then reconvene for lunch. So that means okay, this is very confusing.
Hold on, sorry.
Yeah, no, we need everyone to be muted while the chair speaks, please. And I'll mute myself too.
Thank you, Judge. I don't want you to be muted, but anyway, I was proposing to take a 10 minutes break and coming back and then do the lunch break around, whenever the next petitions will be done. If my board fellow members are okay with that, without taking the lunch break of an hour right now. Okay? Okay. I don't see any problem with that. So let's take a 10 minutes break, reconvene at 11:47 and precisely, and then we'll go with the next proceeding. Thank you.